Here's a little tutorial on how I use the Chemex. Okay, so I got that there. And I decided to just get a really cheap water boiling automatic tea kettle thing. So in this case I put like 1 liter in. I don't know why it didn't come in like cups, but that's what I chose. And I'm going to let that heat. Now here's how this works. You can look on the internet and you can figure out your own ratios. But here's the Chemex filter, okay, which is really all the magic is here in the filter. And it's a folded up piece of paper, but you really don't have to unfold it. You see there's one piece here, and then there's like 3 behind. So you just take this one piece, and you just kind of open it up like that, right? So the 3 pieces are right by the spout. And then what most people say to do is to take and just run about 10 ounces of water through this thing. To kind of moisten it up to get out any pulp, and then also it does, you know, shape the filter to the end. Ran that water through there, emptied it out, pulled this out, put it back in, ready to go. So now we just got to put the coffee in. So one of the measurements that I found, since I have this pot that only measures in liters, one person said 12 tablespoons for 1 liter. I'll probably do a little bit less. Depending on how strong you like coffee, you can put more or you can put less. You can experiment with this. I'm going to go ahead and put in, let's say, about five of these scoops, which are allegedly 2 tablespoons, but I don't think it's exactly accurate. So let's put in a coffee in here. Now, you'll read on the internet, there's a bunch of different techniques to do this. And ideally what you don't want to do is have all the coffee running through one big pile, right? So that it's at the very bottom. You want this to sort of spread out, and there's some ways in which you can do this. So for this technique I found, which is kind of interesting, is you make a little divot in there. And most of the techniques ask you to kind of get the coffee blooming first, which means pour some water into it before, so you can sort of saturate it. So this one I thought was kind of interesting. We're gonna pour a little bit in the middle. Okay. And let's get, you know, sort of some of the coffee. I think what's going to happen is some of the coffee below is going to start getting wet. So you just wait a little while. Technique the other day. And what we're basically going to do is we're going to pour on the outside and continually go in with the water. And I think what this has the effect of actually drawing the grounds up on the side when we start to fill this up. Got to watch how full we have this. But we start pouring like this, and this isn't the ideal pot. There are some pretty custom pots. So we're just going to pour around here. And you can see that the color of the coffee is getting pretty nice. And that guy is still kind of floating in here. So the last part the part that we wet first is the part that's going to end up getting wet last. As you can see, this is kind of floating. And, you know, it'll take you a little while to do this, and you'll figure it out. And, you know, because this is only an 8 cup, you might have to pause in the middle. So what we should have right now, we got some coffee brewing through here. The color's pretty good, and we pretty much have like a French press with a filter, which is kind of what this thing really is. But as we watch the coffee go through, it should work pretty well. And more water in there. And we use the same technique here. Because again, we don't totally want to flood it. You don't really need to mix it up at all. Still got about a ½ liter left in here. As you can see though, we had a pretty nice color going on here. And of course you can figure out what your right balance and mix, and you know, you've got filtered water in your house, which would probably make a better cup of coffee than I have, though. At this point, I actually take my thing over here and put it on the stove because, you know, the water is boiling. Boiling water is, what, 200 degrees, 212. But by the time it hits this thing, it's probably in the high 180s. What's 190 is about perfect brewing temperature. But of course, I have a simmer in here. So just real low. It's really, really low, and actually you end up with sort of this heating itself, which works pretty well. And, there you go. You just continue pouring, and then at the end, we'll see what it looks like. Done is sort of all these grounds going kind of around the outside, and not a huge pile. There's obviously going to be a pile down here, but I learned this technique that, like, if it all goes to the bottom, then all the coffee is just draining through this one clumpy pile, versus this whole round, circular pouring technique, which seems to make sense, right? Whereas it's not just clumped up at the bottom. That's kind of how I used to have it when I started it, but that kind of seems to work pretty well. So give it a shot. Just vary your measurements. Obviously, you know how to make a cup of coffee, so however many tablespoons of coffee you want in your cups, then do that. And that's how the Chemex works. Filter out, and then one more thing, this little lid here, this little lid is awesome. Just goes in the top. You need to take it out when you pour it because it's not attached. But the nice thing is this, the wood around here doesn't hold the heat, right? Wood doesn't hold heat very well. So you should be able to pick this up. If you've had this guy on the stove for a while, the wood might have actually heated up, but this should be a lot less warm than the actual glass is. So enjoy your coffee.